I got into a barroom fight. I was carrying a gun, which was the stupidest thing I've ever done.
Old country music wasn't just about heartbreak and whiskey. It was about rivalry, rebellion, and unforgivable sins. Some names carved their legacies in gold, while others drowned in scandal, betrayal, and public hate. From outlaws who defied Nashville's rules to stars whose tempers and choices destroyed them, these are the 21 most despised names in old country music, where fame met infamy, and number 12 will make even you frown. Number 21, Johnny Paycheck. Johnny Paycheck's name was once shouted in smoky bars and jukebox halls across America, but behind the fame stood a man whose temper often burned hotter than the whiskey he loved. Born Donald Lytle, he became the voice of the working-class rebel, the kind of man who sang what others were too afraid to say. His anthem, "Take This Job and Shove It," turned him into a hero for every overworked laborer. But his personal life became a nightmare that even Nashville couldn't ignore. Paycheck's wildness wasn't an act. He picked fights with fellow artists, wrecked hotel rooms, and lived every verse of his outlaw songs. His life spiraled in the late 70s and 80s when his drinking, substances, and arrogance burned bridges faster than he could rebuild them. The final blow came in 1985 when he shot a man in an Ohio bar over an argument that barely mattered. That moment turned him from outlaw to criminal, earning him a prison sentence that shattered his career. Though he tried to make a comeback later, the damage was done. Fans who once saw a defiant hero now saw a fallen man consumed by his own legend. Johnny Paycheck didn't just live country music, he destroyed himself trying to prove he was tougher than the songs he sang. Number 20, David Allan Coe. Few names in country music history divide fans like David Allan Coe. To some, he's a poetic outlaw who wrote from the raw edges of life. To others, he's a walking controversy who pushed every boundary of decency. Coe's life reads like a Southern ballad soaked in rebellion, a man who lived hard, sang harder, and refused to apologize for any of it. Before fame, Coe spent much of his youth behind bars, where he learned to turn pain into lyrics. When he burst into Nashville in the 1970s, he brought a sound that was rough, honest, and unapologetically defiant. Songs like "You Never Even Called Me By My Name" and "The Ride" made him an outlaw hero. But soon, his career took a darker turn. Coe's reputation suffered because of his underground albums, records filled with explicit, offensive, and racially charged lyrics that most radio stations refused to play. His unfiltered style drew criticism not only from the public, but from within country music itself. Many artists distanced themselves, calling him a disgrace to the genre. Despite the backlash, Coe stood by his work, insisting he was misunderstood and misjudged. But the damage lingered. While his songwriting brilliance can't be denied, his defiance made him one of country's most despised figures, a legend haunted by his own need to shock the world. Number 19, Spade Cooley. Spade Cooley was once the smiling face of Western swing, a man who mixed charm, fiddle strings, and Hollywood glamour into a golden career. In the 1940s, he was the king of Western swing, adored for his upbeat tunes and movie star looks. Crowds filled ballrooms to watch him perform, never guessing that behind the polished smile lived a man consumed by jealousy and rage. As fame grew, Cooley's ego darkened. He was obsessed with control over his band, his image, and worst of all, his wife, Ella May. By the late 1950s, his personal life had spiraled into chaos. In 1961, Cooley's temper exploded. In a fit of violent jealousy, he beat and murdered his wife in front of their teenage daughter. The news stunned America. Overnight, the adored performer became a monster in the public eye. Cooley was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. Ironically, while serving time, he was granted permission to perform a concert for inmates and guards. After the final applause, he suffered a heart attack and died backstage, a twisted ending to a man whose charm had once fooled millions. Spade Cooley's fall remains one of the darkest stains on country music history, proof that fame can't hide evil forever. Number 18, Hank Williams Jr. Hank Williams Jr. inherited his father's name, voice, and fame, but he carved his own path with fire and defiance. While his early career tried to mimic his legendary father, Hank Jr. soon rebelled, creating a loud, electric version of country that spoke to outlaws and free spirits. Yet it wasn't just his music that got people talking, it was his mouth. Hank Jr. became infamous for saying exactly what he thought, no matter who it offended. His interviews and lyrics often came with sharp political opinions and insults that divided fans. In 2011, he made a controversial comment comparing President Obama to Hitler on national television, which got him dropped by ESPN and condemned by many. To some fans, he was a truth-telling patriot. To others, a loud, reckless symbol of everything wrong with country's macho culture. Still, Hank Jr. never backed down. He kept performing for sold-out crowds who admired his unapologetic nature. His life was a reflection of raw independence, the same quality that made him both loved and loathed. For all his talent and influence, Hank Williams Jr. remains a lightning rod of controversy, proof that speaking your mind in country music can build a legend or burn it down. Number 17, Jerry Lee Lewis. Jerry Lee Lewis was the kind of performer who didn't just play the piano, he attacked it. His wild energy, screaming vocals, and reckless spirit made him one of music's first true rebels. Before long, he wasn't always having the bad reputation. He was the bridge between rock and country, burning through both genres with his raw charisma. But fame came crashing down in 1958 when news broke that Lewis had married his 13-year-old cousin, Myra Gale Brown. The revelation destroyed his career overnight. Concerts were canceled, radio stations banned his songs, and fans who once screamed for him now turned away in disgust. Nashville shut its doors on him, and the press branded him as a national disgrace. For years, Lewis struggled in exile, performing in small clubs and fighting the weight of his own reputation. Yet, like a phoenix, he clawed his way back through country music in the late 1960s, scoring hits like What's Made Milwaukee Famous and She Even Woke Me Up to Say Goodbye. Still, the shadow of scandal never left him. To this day, Jerry Lee Lewis is remembered as both a genius and a sinner, a man whose passion burned too bright and whose choices forever scarred his legacy. Number 16, Toby Keith. Toby Keith was the booming voice of early 2000s country, the man who wrapped himself in red, white, and blue and sang anthems that filled stadiums. His songs about pride, soldiers, and American grit made him a hero to many, but also a villain to others. Behind the flag-waving image was an artist accused of arrogance, ego, and political provocation. After 9/11, Keith's hit, courtesy of the red, white, and blue, The Angry American, became both a rallying cry and a controversy. The song's raw patriotism struck a chord with millions, but angered critics who called it warmongering and insensitive. His public feud with Natalie Maines of the Dixie Chicks, who criticized the Iraq War, only fueled the fire. He mocked her on stage, while she accused him of spreading hate. Despite the drama, Keith stood firm, insisting he was just singing for America's wounded pride. But his outspoken personality and refusal to bend to political correctness made him one of country's most polarizing figures. Even after years of success, his name still stirs debate. Patriot to some, provocateur to others. Toby Keith didn't just sing about America, he embodied its contradictions, earning both love and loathing in equal measure. Number 15, Billy Ray Cyrus. When Billy Ray Cyrus burst onto the scene in 1992 with Achy Breaky Heart, he was an instant sensation. The song dominated radio, his dance moves filled TV screens, and his mullet became a cultural symbol. For a brief moment, he was the face of country music's new generation, young, flashy, and full of energy. But the same hit that made him a star quickly became his curse. Critics called him a gimmick, accusing him of watering down country music to chase fame. Traditionalists despised the pop influence in his songs, branding him a manufactured cowboy. Even Nashville insiders turned their backs, mocking his sudden rise as proof that real country had been replaced by show business. As the years passed, Cyrus struggled to escape the shadow of his own success. Every new album was measured against Achy Breaky Heart, and none lived up. His attempt to reinvent himself as an actor, and later as the father of pop star Miley Cyrus, only deepened his reputation as a sellout in the eyes of purists. Still, Cyrus never stopped believing in his roots. Through highs and humiliations, he remained true to his small-town beginnings. Yet, in the story of country music, Billy Ray Cyrus will always be remembered as the man who flew too high on one catchy tune. Number 14, Garth Brooks. Garth Brooks is one of the most successful country artists in history, a man who filled stadiums and sold over 150 million records. But behind his success lies a surprising truth. Many traditionalists hated him for it. To them, Garth wasn't saving country music, he was destroying it. In the early 90s, Brooks brought theatrical lights, smoke, and rock-style energy to his shows. His songs crossed into pop territory, introducing country to millions who had never listened before. Fans adored him, but critics accused him of selling out. They said he turned country into a spectacle, a polished machine designed for mainstream money rather than heartfelt storytelling. His experiment as Chris Gaines, a rock alter ego, only deepened the divide. Nashville veterans mocked him, saying he'd lost touch with what country stood for. Yet Garth ignored the noise, staying loyal to his fans and delivering the kind of high-energy performances few could match. Today, his legacy is undeniable, a record-breaking icon who changed the business forever. But in the eyes of old-school country loyalists, he'll always be the man who made country too big, too flashy, and too Hollywood. Garth Brooks didn't ruin country music. He redefined it, and not everyone was ready for that. Number 13, Dixie Chicks. The Dixie Chicks were once America's sweethearts, three women who harmonized with fire, wit, and power. They reigned over late 90s country with hits like Wide Open Spaces and Cowboy Take Me Away. But one comment changed everything. In 2003, while performing in London, lead singer Natalie Maines criticized President George W. Bush and the Iraq War, saying she was ashamed he was from Texas. The backlash was instant and brutal. Radio stations banned their songs, fans burned their CDs, and the trio became public enemies in their own genre. What made it worse was how unapologetic they were. Instead of backing down, the Dixie Chicks released Not Ready to Make Nice, a fiery anthem of defiance that addressed their critics head-on. The song won Grammy Awards, but deepened the divide between them and Nashville's conservative base. For years, they were shut out of the country scene, branded as traitors and troublemakers. Yet their courage to speak their truth inspired a new generation of women in music. Time has softened some opinions, but the sting remains. The Dixie Chicks didn't just lose fans, they lost a home in the genre they helped shape. Their story is one of bravery, backlash, and the high cost of honesty in country music. Number 12, Merle Haggard. Merle Haggard's life was a country song come to life. Prison bars, heartbreak, redemption, and fame. Born in California during the Great Depression, he grew up poor and restless, constantly in trouble. By his early 20s, he was serving time in San Quentin prison, where he vowed to turn his life around. When he finally did, the result was nothing short of legendary. Songs like Mama Tried and Okie from Muskogee turned him into a working man's hero. He sang for the forgotten, the stubborn, and the proud.
But as his fame grew, so did the criticism. Many accused him of hypocrisy, preaching about morality after a life of crime, and later shifting his political stance in ways that alienated fans.
Some saw Okie from Muskogee as a proud defense of small-town values. Others viewed it as a narrow, judgmental attack on change. Haggard himself later admitted the song wasn't meant to divide, but by then, it already had. Despite his complicated legacy, Merle Haggard's honesty set him apart. He didn't pretend to be perfect. He just sang the truth as he saw it. Loved by many, despised by some, Haggard was proof that redemption doesn't erase rebellion. It only adds another verse to the story. Number 11, Tanya Tucker. Tanya Tucker exploded onto the country scene at just 13 years old, her raspy voice and fearless energy setting her apart from the sweet, polished image of most young stars. Songs like Delta Dawn made her a sensation, but fame came too early, and so did the chaos. By her late teens, Tanya had traded innocence for rebellion, turning into one of Nashville's most talked-about women. While other country stars followed the rules, Tanya broke them all. She partied hard, loved harder, and refused to apologize for living life her way. Her relationships with famous men, including Glenn Campbell, became tabloid fuel, and her wild lifestyle made her both admired and despised. Industry executives labeled her difficult and unstable, but Tanya didn't care. By the early 80s, scandals, substance abuse, and fading hits nearly ended her career. Yet, like a phoenix, she came roaring back with songs like Strong Enough to Bend and Two Sparrows in a Hurricane. She reminded everyone that her voice was still as fierce as her spirit. Tanya Tucker became a symbol of defiance, a woman who wouldn't be tamed by Nashville's expectations. To her critics, she was reckless. To her fans, she was real. Tanya didn't just sing country music, she lived it, scars and all. Number 10. Tammy Wynette. Tammy Wynette's voice could break your heart before the second verse, and her song Stand By Your Man became one of the most famous and controversial country hits of all time. She embodied the perfect image of a traditional Southern woman, loyal, loving, and graceful. But behind that golden voice lay a life full of pain, scandal, and manipulation that divided both fans and peers. Tammy's personal life often overshadowed her talent. Her multiple marriages, including the turbulent one with George Jones, were constant tabloid headlines. Their fights, breakups, and reunions created a love story that sometimes felt more tragic than romantic. While many adored her vulnerability, others accused her of using heartbreak as a publicity tool. Inside Nashville, Tammy's reputation wasn't always kind. Rumors of feuds, financial struggles, and controlling behavior followed her for years. Even her signature song drew backlash from women who saw it as submissive rather than empowering. Still, no one could deny the emotion in her voice. Tammy Wynette sang pain like she had lived every note, because she had. To her fans, she was the voice of every broken woman. To her critics, she was the queen of drama who blurred the line between truth and theater. Number 9. Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash was the rebel who became a saint, the outlaw who walked the line between sin and salvation. To millions, he was a hero, a man who sang about prisoners, outcasts, and redemption. But behind the black clothes and deep baritone voice was a man haunted by addiction, anger, and a long trail of enemies. In his early career, Cash's wild behavior earned him as many headlines as his hits. He smashed hotel rooms, set fire to forests, and was arrested more than once. His addiction to pills destroyed relationships and nearly cost him his career. Nashville insiders grew tired of his chaos, calling him unreliable and arrogant. Yet, every time Cash fell, he rose again, stronger, wiser, and more beloved. His prison concerts at Folsom and San Quentin made him a voice for the forgotten, while his faith later turned him into a symbol of redemption. But even then, some critics saw hypocrisy in the Man in Black, questioning how a man who sang about God could never escape his own demons. Johnny Cash was not perfect, and that's why people loved him. He carried the weight of sin and grace in equal measure, reminding the world that even saints sometimes stumble in the dark. Number 8. Waylon Jennings. Waylon Jennings didn't follow Nashville's rules. He rewrote them. In the 1970s, when the city was controlled by polished production and radio formulas, Waylon stormed in with grit, leather, and rebellion. His sound, raw, electric, and unapologetic, helped shape the outlaw country movement alongside Willie Nelson and Johnny Cash. But the same defiance that made him a legend also made him one of the most despised figures in the business. Waylon clashed constantly with record labels, producers, and executives who tried to control him. He demanded creative freedom, and when he didn't get it, he walked out. His hard substances use became infamous, especially his narcotics habit, which he nearly died from. Friends watched helplessly as he burned through money and opportunities, consumed by his own need to live wild. Many in Nashville saw him as arrogant and ungrateful, a man too proud to respect the system that made him famous. But Waylon didn't care about approval, he cared about truth. When he finally sobered up and reflected on his past, he admitted his faults but never apologized for who he was. Waylon Jennings lived life on his own terms, even when it cost him everything. In a town built on image, he was pure reality, and that scared people. Number 7. Loretta Lynn. Loretta Lynn was born in a Kentucky cabin and rose from poverty to become one of country music's most influential women. Her songs spoke for housewives, dreamers, and fighters, women who felt unheard in a world run by men. But in breaking barriers, Loretta also broke plenty of rules, and Nashville wasn't always kind to her for it. Her songwriting was fearless. When she sang The Pill, a bold anthem about birth control, radio stations across America banned it. Rated X, Don't Come Home a-Drinkin', and You Ain't Woman Enough all challenged the traditional image of a quiet, obedient woman. Critics called her vulgar and rebellious. Even some female fans accused her of being too outspoken for comfort. Loretta never backed down. She stood her ground with a soft smile and sharp wit, insisting her songs came from real women's lives. Her friendship with Conway Twitty sparked rumors, and her straightforward attitude often put her at odds with Nashville's conservative gatekeepers. Yet, those same qualities made her a hero to millions. Through decades of controversy, Loretta Lynn remained unshaken. She proved that country music wasn't just for cowboys, it was for the women who loved them, left them, and survived them. To her critics, she was too loud. To history, she was the voice that changed everything. Number 6, Blake Shelton. Blake Shelton might be one of country's most recognizable faces today, but his rise to fame came with a fair share of backlash. Once a small-town Oklahoma singer with a cowboy charm, Shelton became a household name through hit songs and his long-running role on The Voice. Yet, as fame grew, so did the whispers that he had abandoned his country roots for Hollywood glamour. Traditionalists accused Shelton of turning country music into pop television entertainment. His sharp humor, often laced with sarcasm, rubbed many the wrong way, and his outspoken opinions on social media added fuel to the fire. In 2013, he sparked outrage when he called traditional country fans old farts and jackasses. Even though he later apologized, the comment left a lasting mark. Shelton's highly publicized relationships, especially his romance with pop icon Gwen Stefani, only deepened the divide. Fans accused him of trading his cowboy image for celebrity headlines, but behind the spotlight, Blake remained unapologetically himself, fun-loving, brash, and unfiltered. While some see him as a sellout, others see him as the man who brought country to a new generation. Love him or hate him, Blake Shelton proved that country music could evolve, even if that meant making enemies along the way. Number 5, Shania Twain. In the 1990s, Shania Twain redefined what country music could sound like, and not everyone liked it. With sparkling outfits, pop beats, and confidence that lit up every stage, she became one of the best-selling female artists in history. But as her fame soared, critics accused her of betraying the roots of the genre she came from. Songs like Man, I Feel Like a Woman, and That Don't Impress Me Much made her a global superstar, but Nashville purists sneered at her crossover success. They said her music was too polished, too pretty, too pop. Her producer and then husband, Mutt Lange, known for working with rock bands, was blamed for ruining her country authenticity. Even as awards piled up, the resentment simmered. Some radio stations refused to play her songs, and old-school artists dismissed her as an outsider who used country music as a stepping stone. Yet, Shania ignored the noise and stayed focused on empowering women with her lyrics and style. She brought glamour and global attention to a genre often confined to small towns. To her fans, she wasn't betraying country, she was evolving it. Shania Twain may have broken the mold, but she also built a bridge between country and the rest of the world. Her critics saw rebellion. History saw revolution. Number 4, Kenny Rogers. Kenny Rogers wasn't just a singer, he was a storyteller. With his rugged charm and soulful voice, he became one of the most recognizable names in both country and pop music. But his crossover success came at a cost. While millions adored him, some country traditionalists accused him of selling out the genre's roots for fame and fortune. The Gambler, Lucille, and Coward of the County became timeless hits, blending country storytelling with smooth pop production. Rogers' albums topped charts worldwide, but Nashville insiders whispered that he'd traded authenticity for mainstream appeal. His partnerships with pop icons like Lionel Richie and Dolly Parton blurred the lines even further. Kenny's television appearances and business ventures only deepened the divide. To some, he was a marketing genius who brought country music to global audiences. To others, he represented the commercialization of an art form built on simplicity and truth. Yet, through all the criticism, Rogers remained grounded. He never denied his ambition or his love for all kinds of music. His voice carried emotion that touched fans from every walk of life. In the end, Kenny Rogers proved that you could gamble with fame and still win. Though some called him a traitor to tradition, he left behind a legacy that made country music richer and wider than ever before. Number 3, Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton is often seen as untouchable, the smiling face of kindness, talent, and success. But even the most beloved icons face criticism, and Dolly's rise wasn't without resentment. Behind the glitter, big hair, and charm, she spent decades fighting against judgment from people who didn't understand her vision. In her early years, critics dismissed her as a pretty blonde with a fake accent. Some accused her of using her looks to get attention, while others mocked her high-pitched voice and flashy wardrobe. Even her breakout hit, Jolene, stirred gossip about infidelity and image. To traditionalists, Dolly seemed too Hollywood for country's humble roots. But Dolly was smarter than anyone realized. Every sparkle, every laugh, every sharp one-liner was part of her strategy. a way to disarm critics while building an empire. She became one of the most successful songwriters in history, yet people often focused more on her appearance than her artistry. Still, Dolly never lost her grace. She turned every insult into a lesson in self-confidence and generosity. Through it all, she gave millions hope, from her literacy foundation to her funding of COVID-19 vaccine research. Dolly Parton may have been underestimated by her critics, but she never needed their approval. She proved that being too much can be exactly what makes you unforgettable. Number 2, Travis Tritt. Travis Tritt strutted into the 1990s country scene with leather boots, long hair, and an attitude that screamed rebellion. While his music was powerful and heartfelt, his personality made him one of the genre's most divisive stars. He wasn't afraid to speak his mind, and that often got him into trouble. Tritt's songs like Here's a Quarter, Call Someone Who Cares, and Trouble made him a fan favorite among working-class listeners. But behind the hits was a man known for his fiery temper and outspoken opinions. He clashed with record labels, journalists, and even fellow artists. Some accused him of arrogance, while others admired his honesty. He often took public shots at other musicians, criticizing what he saw as the pop-ification of country music. His feud with Ray Cyrus became legendary, with Tritt calling Achy Breaky Heart a disgrace to country. That bluntness earned him both applause and hatred in equal measure. Through the controversies, Travis stayed true to his beliefs. He saw himself as a defender of real country music, even when it cost him airplay and friendships. His rebel heart made him impossible to ignore. Number 1, Kris Kristofferson. Kris Kristofferson was never your typical country star. A Rhodes Scholar, Army pilot, and poet, he came into Nashville with ideas far deeper than honky-tonk heartbreak. His lyrics were raw, intelligent, and painfully honest. Too honest for some. While critics admired his artistry, many insiders found him arrogant, difficult, and too educated for the working-class heart of country music. His early songs like Sunday Morning Comin' Down and Me and Bobby McGee were emotional masterpieces exploring loneliness, regret, and rebellion. Yet some radio stations refused to play his work, calling it too dark or too uncommercial. Kristofferson didn't care. He wrote for truth, not charts. His rough voice and rebellious nature set him apart in a world obsessed with polish. He drank hard, loved freely, and lived life with a poetic recklessness that both fascinated and frustrated Nashville. Colleagues admired his brilliance, but often bristled at his defiance. Over time, his songwriting earned him legendary status, but he remained an outsider, a man respected more for his mind than embraced for his style.